Hello, everyone. Let us move to the next segment, which is called Socio-Religious Reform Movements, in which we are going to see that how British rule, in a way, was very instrumental in abolishing some of the social practices which were not akin to the very idea of liberty and equality, the values of democracy, and the human rights, which in a way Indian natives they also informed through various kind of interactions, getting education or missionary activities, and also trying to reflect upon some of the customs and traditions which were in a very marginalizing either towards the marginalized communities like untouchable communities, or the communities who were living in the margin. Also, a very large segment of India's population who were, suffering at the hands of the Indians themselves. They were called women, right? Because women were facing the brunt of the patriarchy. Women were facing the brunt of the caste hierarchy. Women were, either not educated, or they were facing that what was called the sati practices. So we will be learning in this segment about all these topics one by one, and we'll see that what were the factors, what were the forces which were leading to Indians reforming, and who were the stakeholders and who were the leaders who were kind of critiquing their own customs and traditions. So let us move on to see that what were the factors which gave rise to desire for reform. Now, as we all know, that the socio-religious reform it started even prior to 1857 revolt. The abolition of sati practices in 1828 by William Bentinck, which in a way marked the leadership of the Raja Ram Mohan Roy, who was in a way very instrumental in campaigning against the sati practices and facing the ire of some of the landlords and zamindars in Bengal. This in a way also led to the Renaissance, that what is called Bengal Renaissance, which marked the a kind of leadership emerging out of Bengal, which was very conscious about the idea of education, the idea of civil liberties, and many other things. Now, in the very beginning of the 19th century, it in a way began the modern Indian Renaissance, but also people were aware about the European phenomena, that what was called Enlightenment and Renaissance, where many of the Indians who traveled abroad, they learned some of the social values, political values, and they came back, and then they started kind of experimenting, or they started kind of introducing some concepts in Indian society. Right now, this has to do also with the impact of British rule, though in a very positive sense, that because British conquest differed from earlier invaders, leading to a stagnant civilization. British rule played a complex and decisive role in shaping modern Indian history. Now, this was also the time where social conditions were very ripe for reform. If we see the religious and social ills, like Hinduism, steeped in superstition, the priestly class held overwhelming influence over the masses. Idolatry and polytheism reinforced religious ideologies. The position of women, as I mentioned, they were facing, brunt of from all the sides, and it was a very depressing position for women. And the female infanticide, child marriage, polygamy, and sati were prevalent. It was rampant. Social coercion and misery for women. Women were not allowed to get education. There were many religious reformers, social reformers who asked for women education. They started establishing schools. So the situation was really very, very depressing. The caste problem, I mean, I'm talking about all these as an internal enemy. So enemy, within need to be also annihilated with the enemy outside, which is the British Raj. So the caste problem, the caste system created social divisions, which hindered social mobility. That kind of created a culture of social disability. Untouchability was again a rampant practice, which kind of created a severe disabilities, in fact impacting human dignity. And almost on a everyday basis, there was humiliation of people, from the untouchable communities. Now, if you see opposition to Western culture and also new awareness among enlightened Indians. Now, there was kind of grouping among Indians whether there is any kind of honest, uh, kind of attempt to reform our society, or whatever is introduced by whether has any kind of sincerity and honesty, because the very idea of liberty, equality, and the very idea of human rights and democracy, this has nothing to do with the colonial rule, because colonial rule does not accept natives as their own, or the liberty, equality, and democracy and human rights does not extend to the people of India. Rather, it is very monopolized and very kind of extended to the British officials and British people. So there is dishonesty, there is double standard, there is certain kind of hypocrisy, which in a way was kind of protested by some of the leaders who were very against the reform and also against the Western culture, right? So they saw that there's certain kind of westernization of Indian society by introduction of science, by introduction of English language, by introduction of various other cultural instruments which are going to affect and impact the Indian society and impacting the social fabric. Also, there was certain kind of attempt to revive traditional institutions, in response to cultural intrusion by the British. So the very counter hegemonic tendency to counter Western culture uh, had to do something with securing and preserving certain kind of status quo within the Indian society. But whether that status quo is going to benefit the Indian masses altogether, that need to be looked into. So the other group of people who were being very conscious and aware about the fruit of enlightenment, the idea of liberty, equality, and democracy, and how they are going to use the very same ideas and concepts on which the modern uh, democracies and modern nation state is based on, and how they're going to have a very a coordinated and concerted kind of effort to to shame the British Raj that it is your double standard, and instead you try to introduce all those concepts, idea of people's representation, so on and so forth, or the very idea of taking into a fold of the decision making processes the native Indians, so that they will know that what is required for them and what is best for them. Instead, the very arbitrary kind of taxation policies, which ultimately going to going to impact and cripple the either domestic economy or local industries or artisans and handicrafts. So in fact, on contrary to the opposition to Western culture, the aware the enlightened Indians, those who were aware about the impact of modern Western culture, they acknowledged that our society lacked something, and we have been defeated by the foreign powers, because our culture is not as strong, our nationalism is not as strong as the British people. So this in a way also inculcated rising tide of nationalism, economic forces, education, and awareness. Strengthened the resolve to reform. They thought about that reformation is very much required, and ultimately that gave the direction of socio sort of cultural regeneration in the 19th century. And ultimately, if we see that there was influence of humanistic ideals on social reform by newly educated middle class, whether it was Raja Ram Mohan Roy, or Vidya Chand Sagar, or Louis Vivier de Rosio, and many other foreigners who were working for betterment of the Indian lives. They were kind of dedicating, they were contributing, they were sacrificing, for the removal of all sort of social, evils, and the stigmas, and many other kind of ill and malpractices within the Indian society in the name of religion, customs, and traditions. Now, if we see the evolution of social reform movements, what were the initial social base? The social base was, of course, limited to upper and middle classes, and primarily upper caste, like Brahmin and Kshatriyas, and to some extent the business class like Vaishyas. And the attempts were to balance modernized views with existing social conditions. So it was not a very radical, revolutionary kind of reform movements. The socio-religious reform movements were, not a kind of rupture, or drastic rupture. Rather, it was a very gradual transformation by incorporating into new ideas and modern views. And because this gradual expansion into lower strata of society, gradually, with in the list of Rajaram Mohan Roy, Vidyasagar, we see Jyotiba Phule, Savitribai Phule, or Narayana Guru and others entering into, and ultimately, lower state of society also getting benefited out of these reform movements. And then, of course, transformation and reconstruction, starts with these reform movements. Now, let us see that who are some of the key figures and also organizations. The early leaders like Rajaram Mohan Roy, who came up with this organization called Brahma Samaj, Dayanand Saraswati, who came up with what is called Arya Samaj, Vidyasagar setting up educational school, becoming the education officer, Jyotiba Phule, starting Satyashodhak Samaj, Ranade and others coming up with Pratna Samaj, and so there was series of Devband movements. On the other hand, there was series of movements, reform movements, whether some reform movements were focusing on education, some reform movements were focusing on women's empowerment. Some were focusing on upliftment of the Dalit communities. So people like Narayana Guru, E.V. Ramaswamy Periyar, Ambedkar, right, and others, they were kind of trying to raise those very pertinent questions of equality and idea of graded inequality, which is rooted in caste hierarchy, and trying to galvanize support from various segments of society, from upper caste to the lower caste, and ultimately asking for annihilation of caste. So what we see that this socio-religious reform movement, in a way, from 19th century, the very beginning of the 19th century, entering into a very transitionary phase where that is, in a way, providing the leadership of the 20th century national movement. And in fact, the Indian languages were utilized, the vernacular languages were utilized for mass communication. The very mass communication is required for the national movement, and vernacular languages especially were utilized by translating materials and pamphlets, and of course that leading to the establishment of the Indian National Congress. Fight for betterment of position of women was one of the very focal point of the socio-religious reform movement. As I said, that women were suffering, and their conditions were miserable. So women had a very low status and considered inferior to men, and that was the reason of the female infanticide. That was the reason of burning of women with the pyre of the husband. And in fact, those women who resisted, they were beaten, by the menfolk, and kind of tying with the dead body of their husbands. So suppression through practices like parda, early marriage, ban on widow marriage, and sati, etc., in a way led to the very miserable condition of women. Now, so that actually leads to the very idea of importance of reform. So reform was very, very important in that sense. Now, what were the steps taken to ameliorate women's position? If we see abolition of sati, the regulation of 1829 declared sati illegal and punishable. This extended not only in Bengal but also extended to Madras and Bombay presidencies in 1830. Preventing female infanticide. They again, regulations of 1795 and 1804 declared infanticide illegal. The Act of 1870 made it compulsory to register births. So when you have registered birth, then of course that adds to the population and census, and ultimately, if any kind of imbalances is identified, then those people who are registering the birth, they would be facing the accountability. Widow remarriage was in a way advocated through Hindu Widows Remarriage Act 56, which legalized widow marriage, and that has to do something the effort led by, which we will be discussing in the next segment, that what Brahma Samaj did to the very idea of widow remarriage or abolition of sati to some extent. Efforts by reformers like Pandit Ishwar Chand Vidyasagar and Vishnu Sastri Pandit, were also very instrumental in the very idea of widow remarriage, and also in a way banning the child marriage. So there was various other act introduced, which was called Native Marriage Act 1972, which prohibited child marriage. Also 1891 Age of Consent Act, which forbade marriage of girls below 12. So even later on, that what we see, the Sharda Act and many other acts, which ultimately led to, the age of marriage getting kind of, increased to, 15 years, and then, 18 years, and so on and so forth. So the legal, age of marriage was 12 by the Age of Consent Act 1891. Child Marriage Restraint Act, which is called Sarda Act, in 1929, ultimately, amended, in free India, where 18 years age was, considered as the legal age to marry. So, if we see, early pioneers of women's education, as I mentioned many names earlier, there were also efforts by the Christian missionaries who initiated, like Calcutta Female Juvenile, Society, established in 1819. Bethune School, founded by J.E.D. Bethune, in 1849, a notable early institution, the Bethune School. The original pioneers like Jagannath Nana, Shankar Seth, and Bhaudaji in Maharashtra, Jyotirao Phule, as I said, that who came up with Satya Shodhak Samaj, and also advocated for women education with his wife Savitribai Phule, who established first school in Pune with Fatima Sheikh. So very interesting contribution led by Savitribai, in a way motivated many women leaders to jump into action for women education. Now, if we see, there were various private initiatives like Alexandra Society for Parsis in 1863, which focused on Parsi girls' education. Lord Dalhousie, of course, a very notorious, leader, British leader, but nevertheless supported, in fact, and also there was Charles Wood's dispatch, which emphasized female education in 1854. There were notable institutions like Indian Women's University by Professor D.K. Karve in 1916, Lady Hardinge Medical College in 1916 in Delhi, which were the women's education institution. Now, various other, women's education movements and organizations participated in liberation and activism, where women's participation in Swadeshi, anti-partition, home rule movements, political engagements, after 1918, including protests, picketing, and participation in various movements. If you see women's organizations, particularly All India Women's Conference established in 1927 with egalitarian objectives, All India Women's Conference legislative reforms, pre and post independence, addressed issues like property rights, marriage, labor, and social justice. So in a way, the socio-religious reform movements which started in 19th century, beginning of 19th century, which in a way, expanded from various, questions within the Indian society, which were, very backward looking, very narrow and parochial minded, and that needed to be reformed for forward looking, for certain kind of, blending of modernity and tradition, which was very important, to fight against the colonial rule, and in a way, uh, if we will look into some of the very stages of some of the movements like Brahma Samaj, Pratna Samaj, Arya Samaj, Devband movement, or Narayana Guru's, Sri Narayana Guru Dharma Paripalana, and Ambedkar's movements, or self-respect movement led by Periyar. If we try to analyze these movements, they had done much service with with the parallel efforts led by Indian National Congress, which provided the backbone to the leadership and also freedom struggle, which we will be definitely trying to address some of the important events which unfolded till 1920, where we'll see the series of acts by the British Raj, which in a way introduced the very idea of constitutionality, the very idea of the certain kinds of rights, certain kind of codes for administration, which in a way were heavily borrowed, reformed, amended within the framing of the Indian Constitution. So, we will be, in the next segment, we will be trying to address some of the, specific socio-religious reform movements by, stressing on their contributions and their, their weaknesses, their strengths, and later on moving to the Government of India Act 1858 to understand that how the rule by the East India Company, or the company rule, is stopped, and how the Parliament of England took over directly, and that became a kind of movement of direct rule from England. So in the next segment, we'll be trying to understand all these events and points. So thank you so much for your patience, and we will meet hopefully in the next segment with some new points. Thank you very much.